Hey guys, I am back again, round two. Today is Friday, August 31st, and I am so excited to announce that we will be interviewing Mike Ugino of Sellbrite, and I am going to add him to the camera. I hope I can get this right the first time. We did a test earlier, and he was on his laptop and it didn't work. So I ended up talking to my friend Rich, and that was really cool. But okay, let me do this real quick. Hey, Mike, I'm gonna wave at you. What's up? Hey, Kathy, how's it going? All right, he is being added. In the meanwhile, let's see what's up. It's adding. Aha!
Hey,
It works.
can you hear me?
Hooray! Yes, totally,
Awesome.
totally can hear you. How are you?
Can you see me now? Can I
I
turn
can
myself
see
that
you,
way?
but you're sideways.
Let's not do that then.
No, I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Forgive me. I'm running around through our office right now. It's
No
like a little rat.
worries.
I'm like a rat in a maze.
Yeah, no worries. Whoa.
Oh.
So I think you are walking around Idea Lab in Pasadena, is that correct?
No, we actually moved out of Idea Lab
No
probably,
way.
yeah, almost 2 years ago now.
Oh,
And we're close. We're right around the corner, but
yeah.
we've got a really cool office with lots of natural light. In fact, you can see we've got big skylights.
Oh,
And
wow.
we've got lots of plants. I don't know if I can do this very well, but we've got a big old hanging plant wall, and these are all our happy people down there. Although I think, it's Friday afternoon, so gosh knows where everybody is gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, we moved out a couple years ago, and have been in our own digs now for a little while.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Very
thanks.
cool. Very cool. Well,
Yeah,
welcome. Welcome to the Facebook Live. I don't know if you've ever done a Facebook Live before.
I have not. Yeah, this is the first for me.
Cool. Well,
But I really
yeah,
appreciate you inviting me. I like what you've been doing. I'm excited to talk with you. And if there are any, I know that you've got a big entrepreneur network, and if there's anything that I can say that may help somebody take the next step, then that's awesome. That's
yeah,
what it's all about.
yeah, for sure. So, I started the Unicorn Startup Series interview as a way to kind of like show people what that startup experience was like. And, it sounds like it's super fun and easy, and you just go get money and you build something and voila, you got customers. But it's really not like that. And so, I wanted to highlight with people, you know, what were the trials and tribulations. And so, like, I'm really passionate about startups. I know that a lot of people are trying to start their own business, but I can only say so much. So let's hear it from the other professional entrepreneurs out there. So yeah, thank you for joining me. So for people who are watching, this is my good friend Mike Ugino of Sellbrite. I'm going to turn the video, so to speak, over to you so that you can introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing, what your company's about, and
Sure.
where you're at.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know if anybody's ever becomes a professional entrepreneur. You kind of stumble into it and
I
you
did,
start to
yeah,
figure things out, and you do a lot of failing and make a lot of mistakes. And then after enough time, you realize how to make fewer mistakes and to move a little bit faster. And then hopefully, you can find some success. And my story was very much that of kind of stumbling into things. But originally, I am from New York. My family's all from New York. We moved to the South when I was really young. I grew up in South Carolina, which is a great place to grow up. It's a state that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, and it seems to only get like negative publicity, but it's a beautiful state. And then moved out to California about 10 years ago. And so now I'm proud to tell everybody I'm from the South, although growing up from with a family from the North in South Carolina, I never really fit in as a Southerner. So I kind of always
oh,
had this identity
interesting.
crisis. Always had this like identity crisis with the South of not really feeling like I'm a Southerner. But then as soon as you're out, you kind of gravitate back to it. In California now for 10 years, and got into e-commerce along the way, and then got into entrepreneurship, and now run a SaaS company. My path was very much serendipitous. I mean, as a kid, I guess I would kind of define myself as always curious. I was very studious, did good in school, and I highly recommend, trying to learn what you can while you're young, because being in school is awesome. And then once you're out of school, then it's everything gets a lot scarier once you're out of school. Was always an avid learner, doer, always pretty active. I was always a pretty bad procrastinator. That's one of the things that I'm trying to get better at as I get older, is to procrastinate less, because it always ends up biting you in the butt, no matter how old you are. And then always was kind of a smart ass as a kid too. I think, depending on who you ask, probably would say that that's still the same. But
I think that's actually a really good trait for people who want to become an entrepreneur, is to be a smart ass, to really kind of challenge the norm and not conform. So I think, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I think you're right about that. I mean, there's an element of being a smart ass that's rooted in being honest and blunt and transparent, and kind of telling it like it is, which I think goes a long way. You got to learn how to filter that and tone it down sometimes. But, for me, I think it was like realizing that I didn't fit that well into the corporate mold. That I was, again, blunt and direct, and I can be loud and brash. That doesn't leave you a whole lot of options. So entrepreneurship seemed like it was kind of a natural fit. I started down, I mean, I'm in e-commerce now and in software and in tech. I started off thinking that I was going to be in finance, and got a degree from business school. My senior year in college, I told myself I'm never going to do this professionally. So moved out of town, actually started a company with some friends that failed pretty miserably, learned how difficult it is to make money in a business, and when you're kind of hunting for business and customers and clients. I actually got started, my first real job was in the beer industry, which is a fantastic industry.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, working for an Italian beer brand, Peroni, which was really kind of new in the US at the time, but now seems to be a little bit everywhere, largely to some of the work that we did. But it was a really cool opportunity. And if anybody ever has a chance to work in the alcohol industry, you can learn a lot. One of the things that I really learned early on was how important it is to be able to sell. And I remember the first time I was face to face with a bar owner trying to sell him on why he should bring Peroni into his bar. And I was like a deer in the headlights, and realized afterwards, it's still a conversation that I play over and over in my head, thinking like, when you don't really know your audience that well, or don't realize who you're talking to on the other end and what their goals are, you're not well prepared. And so that was kind of something that I picked up on at an early age. But it was a really cool opportunity for me when I was actually only 22 years old. Got to be involved in really building that brand up in the US. And so I did that for a few years, and had the opportunity to move to LA. Kind of serendipitous again. It was a romantic encounter an office romance, if you will, that led me to actually just quit my job and move to LA. And that relationship quickly fizzled out, but it turned out moving to LA was the best decision I ever made. So again, you never know. So follow what your heart tells you to do, and where you think you should go next, and don't be afraid. That was the second time I had picked up and moved out of town within 5 years. So
when you moved to LA, did you feel like I don't know, I'm asking this just to kind of validate how I felt when I moved here. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people here like me. Like, this feels like home. I don't feel like an outsider. I don't feel like a fraud. I can be brash and people are okay with it. I can be disruptive and people actually like it. Did you feel that when you moved here? Yeah.
I did, actually. What's interesting is I moved here from Atlanta, and Atlanta is a city that's very similar to LA. Nobody is actually from there. It's a sprawling city with lots of different scenes, great food, great weather. So when I moved to LA, it felt kind of like the same. It was just a little bit bigger, and there was a lot better Korean food. But yeah, I mean, LA is a very welcoming place to move to. It's a big crowded city. So, you know, sometimes like exploring it can feel a little daunting, but I'm the kind of person where when I moved here, the first 2 weeks I was in LA, all I did was drive around and like get the lay of the land and all the freeways because I wanted to know like where everything was. But yeah, so you know, I moved out here and knew that I was looking for something where I could combine the branding elements of what I did with Peroni with something a little bit more analytical because I didn't want to do like heavy sales anymore, even though I enjoy it. And I wanted to kind of hone my chops of being a kind of an analytical person. And it just so happened that that was the opportunity that I found was exactly the combination of those things, and it was in e-commerce. So I fell in with an e-commerce company, a retailer that gave me the opportunity to be a buyer and a merchant. And so I was buying product, understanding how to build promotions and drive traffic and all the things that go into e-commerce. And then having done that for a few years, a friend of mine at that company who had a similar role, but kind of did something a little bit different at the company. We both realized coming from different angles that there was a need for software solutions to help e-commerce businesses, and then transitioned into that world where we actually worked at night and on the weekends. You know, we'd come home from our job at the company was called CPO, still around today. We would come home and work around the dining table, and we did that for about 2 years before we were able to finally set off on our own. So it was a roundabout path, but again, it's kind of a matter of just following what is interesting to you, what you think you know well, and what you can do well, and seeing where it takes you.
Were you I know you wanted to do something new. Was that frightening to you? Like, did you know what you were doing?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it was frightening as much as there's just a lot of unknown, and you're constantly asking yourself, or like in the back of your mind saying, gosh, I'm not sure if I have enough experience to do this new thing or to pull this next thing off, or you know, you have to work on building up your presence. You have to work on driving traffic to your product, and you don't have a lot of resources to hire people. So you've got to invest in yourself, and you've got to learn. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to find yourself doing 10 things in your first, 3 months that you've never done before, and that you just have to go in and figure out. So there's like those moments of, uncertainty, but you got to push through that, and you got to ask people that have been there before. You've got to talk to and find mentors, and study and read, and study from people that have kind of been there before. But yeah, there's a lot of unknown when you're jumping into the entrepreneurial pool, and then once you're in it, that never really stops. So I'd say the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur is riding that roller coaster. So you're going to have incredible highs where you feel like you're going to accomplish everything you ever wanted, and you're going to be hugely successful. And then the very next day, or even that afternoon, you're going to like get hit with something that makes you think the bottom is falling out, and you have no chance of being successful, and you have no skills, and you are a total loser. Like these depths of lows that you can feel as an entrepreneur are very real, and they're just like constant. So as a young entrepreneur, you're like this, and then as you go along and you get more experience, then you're trying to like mellow it out. So it's just like kind of like that, But it's all mental, and the thing that you don't get a good sense of when you watch the news, or you read on TechCrunch, or you see really successful people, you don't get the sense of the fact that life isn't slowing down or making special accommodations for them. Like it's going to come at you, and it's not going to stop just because you're starting a business. You're going to have to deal with all sorts of really difficult shit that you're not going to see coming. Personally, when we got started with Sellbrite, I had just come out of my first bout with cancer, And when we were
Oh,
fundraising early on, I went into a second bout with it and had another big surgery. So we were actually pitching to investors, and I had no voice. And I'm trying to
oh
represent
my
myself as
gosh.
somebody that knows what they're talking about, that can, raising money is a confidence game. You're like showing that you
Yeah,
know
big
what you're
time.
doing and you have an opportunity. And I had no voice to even talk. So it was like those moments of, are we going to be able to pull through this, are difficult. And there, you don't see that stuff coming.
Right.
And every entrepreneur has that. That wasn't the last time that a difficult thing happened that potentially derailed us that we never saw coming, just in our personal lives. Um,
Right.
so it's
Yeah.
one of the biggest challenges as you go along. That's completely independent of being, of having a successful business and a successful model.
Right. I think one of the things that I've learned and that I've seen is that people who hit that low or that challenge tend to push 10 times harder for what they believe and want. So I know that when I had first started my company, Dude, I Need a Truck, I was just coming out of my CPTSD. But I was kicking and screaming, and I wanted an answer, and I wanted to do something for myself. And if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have tried as hard. I probably would have just,
Mhm.
coasted and waited for something to come my way. But wow, that's interesting that you shared that. I thank you for sharing that. I didn't know. Wow. I mean,
Yeah, I don't talk
that's
about it a lot,
hardcore.
but you know what? Like, yeah, I don't talk about it a lot, but it's real, and there was no escaping it. And
Right.
if you're, yeah, it's it's good to share stuff like that,
Yeah.
and hopefully that can be an example for anybody that's dealing with something where they're like, nobody quite understands what I'm going through. Like, when you're facing the potential of never being able to speak again, and your
Hmm.
business is talking to people, like it tests you for sure.
Right.
Um, but
Wow.
you got to keep going, and you find your way through it. And yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Amazing story. Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
Well,
yeah. So you and Brian have come a really long way. And so I met Brian first, and then I was introduced to you, and then I also met Homan. But I'm dropping all these names, and people have no idea who they are or what Sellbrite does. Can you tell us what
sure.
Sellbrite does?
Yeah, sure. So when we were working with in retail before, we we basically looked at the state of selling online and said, unless you have somebody that can build you a custom solution, there really aren't very many easy to use tools out there to help somebody that sells on multiple online sales channels. So if you have your own online website and you are also selling on Amazon and you have an Etsy store or you're selling on eBay, there weren't any good tools back in 2010 to make it easy that were
Hmm.
like even reasonably affordable. So we set out to build one, and Sellbrite is the easiest way to list and sell products on the major global marketplaces. We really focus on building a self-service solution that's out of the box, doesn't require any engineering or development skills, doesn't require you to be super tech savvy. You don't need to be spreadsheet geek, although there's nothing wrong with being a spreadsheet geek. Um, and uh, and you can just use our very simple tool to manage all those sales channels. And so that's
Right.
what we do. It's still a pretty revolutionary concept because even though our industry is growing and e-commerce seems like it's been around for a while, the technology almost is struggling to keep up because these
Hmm.
channels change so much. Building an
Right.
easy to use solution is actually really hard. And
Right.
so we feel like we're in a really exciting spot because our customers love using our software. It's a very approachable way to start selling online, and it's a great business, not business to be in, but just field in general, just being in
Hmm.
e-commerce. And I encourage anybody. It's one thing to start a SaaS or a software solution or a software business, but just starting a retail business, it's never been easier. There's never been a better time to start a company as a small brand that you want to build a brand. You can now do it quicker than ever. You have amazing tools to represent yourself in terms of like digital footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really affordable, and you can use tools like Shopify and Amazon and Etsy and Sellbrite to make that happen really quickly.
Right. So when you first launched Sellbrite in 2010, um, is your idea from 2010 any different from what your product is today? Did you pivot? Did you have to evolve? Were
Yeah.
there a lot of subtle
So
changes?
we sort of pivoted. So what we did was we actually set out in 2012, we started working on our first piece of software, and it was a real small product that we launched that did something that wasn't in existence yet in the market, and it helped a very specific type of seller. And our goal was to create a bunch of little apps, kind of a suite of applications that can help different types of sellers depending on what it is they need.
Mm,
And then after growing that for about 6 months, we got so much feedback from our customers saying, this is awesome, but if only it could do these other things, like it would be the perfect solution for us. And so we kind of made the decision then and there to abandon this idea of having multiple products and just focus on
right.
one. And so
Okay.
we rebranded it. We changed the name, and that's officially when Sellbrite started. And
I
we
see.
spent the next year trying to raise money. You know, we were super naive and thought like everybody's going to want to invest in this. It's super clear and it makes sense to anybody if you explain it. But it turns out that's not the case. You know,
Mm,
explaining your idea to investors is hard, and investors really want to see just the path to get to making money. They don't really care what your product is. So we learned a lot of these things trying to raise money in 2013, and a little over a year later, we're able to find some really great partners here in LA to back us so that we can bring on our first employees. Holman, who you know, was our first, and we were working out of Idea Lab here in Pasadena, which is an awesome company to partner with. And then a year after that is when we actually launched Sellbrite. So that was 2 years
okay.
of heads down fundraising, building product, planning, doing market testing, and not really sure what was going to happen when we actually launched it. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of work to get ready for that point. But you don't have to have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to start a business. You know, for us, it just so happened that we wanted to build a software tool that we didn't have the ability to build ourselves. By the way, it's now easier than ever to build your own software tools, and there are even platforms available that can help you build software tools without really needing to be an engineer or developer.
Right.
Those things didn't exist at the time, and it also didn't quite fit with what we were doing. But you don't have to have that. For us, we needed those things, so it took us longer to make that happen.
Right.
But anybody can hamster wheel their way into proving a model or to proving something can work.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a question kind of about your fundraising strategy and your development strategy. So in the first 2 years, did you focus exclusively on fundraising, or did you focus on building an MVP, or was it split? And how did you come to that decision?
Yeah, so we initially built our first product by scraping together, a little bit of money just that we had. I basically cashed into my IRA, which I don't recommend doing. But you know what? Sometimes you got to do it.
Right.
And we had a product outsourced. And so we built that MVP basically ourselves with the help of an outsourced agency, and tried to use that to prove, some market demand, and then raise
Okay.
money for that. It turns out because that product was different than what we were actually wanting to build, there was a little bit of like it seemed like a pivot, but there was, I think, just a little bit of a gap when trying to explain this to investors. So our strategy was to really like close that gap and say, look, this is basically a very small prototype of what we want to build.
Mm-hmm.
And we were successful in being able to do that. But then we kind of had to get started again, building then the fuller version of what we wanted with Sellbrite,
Okay.
and then using that to raise more money as we went along. So, we've never been a company that went out and raised a Series A at, a $5 million investment on like a $20 million valuation. That has never been us. We've
Mm-hmm.
raised not a whole lot of money. We've raised a little over $1 million total as a company, and it's come in chunks, small chunks, along the way. And that's largely because we've had to kind of step our way up. You know, when you don't have that type of capital and you don't have that network where you can get access to it that, you know, super easily, or you can raise money on just an idea. I mean, this is good. This goes back to being really a first-time founder at trying to raise money. It's one thing if you have had successful businesses or exits before, then raising money is a completely different ballgame.
Right.
But when you're proving yourself for the first time, you've got to really prove it every step of the way. And you've got to prove it by showing that you can grow a product and that you can get customers in and that they're going to pay you. So actually, you know, I think this would be really interesting. One of the things that we did early on with investors was we proved out that we could acquire customers and that they'd be willing to pay for our product. And we did that without even having a product. So what we did was we put up a website that it was very simple, basically a landing page, and it explained what Sellbrite was and how it helped you. And then you could click through to see the pricing. And we had a couple of plans set up. And when you selected a plan to start a trial, we basically took you to a page that said, oops, sorry, we're not quite ready yet, but thanks, and we'll let you know as soon as we are. And by doing that, we were able to, show on average how much people were willing to pay by which plans they selected. And we were able to spend a little bit of money in Google ads and drive traffic to it and say, look, we were able to drive this much traffic that had a click-through rate of X. Then, you know, a certain percentage of those visitors click through to start a trial, and we were able to see, you know, what the payback would have been. So how affordably or economically can we drive traffic and get people to sign up to try our product? And we took that data back to investors and said, look, here's what we were able to test. This is why we think that you should invest even more in the product. And it was successful. Those types of learnings are invaluable, and that data is real. Like those were real people that we were able to drive to a website to prove that they wanted what we were going to build, even though we hadn't actually built it yet.
That's amazing. I think that's a really smart way of approaching it. What I'm seeing a lot today are a lot of people are building the product and then they take a step back and say, oh, well, now I need to figure out how to get customers. But I think the way that you approached it is probably the smarter way, because, you know, even if you build a product, there's no guarantee that people want it. There's no guarantee that there's a product market fit. There's no guarantee that it's something that adds value to a customer's life, right?
Totally. So, you know, I think one of the things that worked well for us was we left that website up and let people sign up for a beta list, you know, 9 months before we were ready. So when we actually went to launch, we had like 2,000 to 3,000 merchants that were ready to use the software.
Oh, wow.
And so that helped us quite a bit. Another thing that we did was we offered our beta period for free for a long time. And I would highly encourage anybody to focus on, you know, if you have a product that you want to make or a service that you want to offer, or if it's just you and your expertise, just focus on your customer and how you can create outsized value for them. So if that is offering your services for free for a while to prove your worth, offering, you know, your product at a lower rate than you think it's actually worth, you know, eventually, that will pay, you know, a huge dividend, because you're going to buy yourself enough time to prove it to your customer. And you're going to be able to really show outsized value. And it's all about creating value. With any product and any business, it's about creating value. So, you know, that worked well for us. We offer a free trial of our product, and we've had people signing up for a trial every day since we launched. And I think it just comes back to that. You know, a lot of our competitors price a lot higher than we do, and that's perfectly okay. I'm not encouraging anybody to price low. Like, I think you should charge whatever you think you're worth, but do it once you've established that value and you can very clearly show it. And you have some data that you can show your potential customers, like, hey, we were able to achieve this type of return for, you know, all of our other customers. That's why we're worth what we charge. In the early days, like, you know, put your pride aside and don't completely, you know, go and whore yourself out. Like, you gotta make money, you gotta be able to eat, but, like, you know, be cautious or cognizant of rather the value that you're creating for people.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I'm really glad that you did that. So I'm reading my own notes because I forgot what the next question is. So can you tell us, I guess challenges, pitfalls, lessons learned, any advice you can offer to anybody else?
Yeah. Well, we talked about riding the roller coaster. I think one challenge with when you have a team, if you've been able to bring on some employees, is keeping your workplace fresh. Keeping things exciting and fun. Um, it's both a challenge and like one of the absolute greatest joys that I have as an entrepreneur is working with an awesome team and being able to celebrate little wins. One of the things that makes our company really fun is we've got a really mean potluck game. So like every other week, we're planning a new potluck, and it's like almost an intimidating competition to see who can bring the most incredible dishes to the table.
Right.
But like at the same time, it's seeding those types of ideas. It's giving your employees the comfort and freedom to like bring in a new idea that's a little bit distracting or maybe takes away from work for the sake of improving company chemistry and morale and productivity. Just doing that constantly almost can be a challenge because you don't want things to get complacent. You don't ever
Right.
want to get complacent as an entrepreneur, but you also don't want your team to like not feel like you are in it for them, which
Right.
we very much are. I mean, um, everybody in our company is an owner of the company. Everybody has equity in the company. So that's an important thing, but like that's only on paper, right? It only goes so far. You've got to also make people feel like they're uh, empowered. So
Right.
I don't know if you can consider that a challenge.
Yeah, well, I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
So, and I'm asking this because maybe we can all learn something from that is what do you look for in an employee, a potential hire? Like, what are those qualities that make for a good culture fit?
Yeah. Okay, so there's two things. So everybody will answer this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
There's two things that I look for. And it really depends on the position. So really there's one thing that I look for, and that is being inquisitive. I want
Mm-hmm.
somebody that wants to know the why to everything. I think it's hugely invaluable that somebody has that kind of curiosity and like something gnawing at them to get the answer. Particularly for our industry. For our industry, it's hugely important that you see something that maybe doesn't make sense, and you go to figure out what's going on, or if is there a learning that we can unlock, or is there a major bug that we just stumbled upon. So I think having that kind of inquisitive nature and asking why, and you can detect that in an interview pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing for me is we do so much communicating with our customers. I mean, we're a low-priced solution where we have lots of customers, and we talk to them all day long, and we talk to each other all day long. I look for good communicators. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to my engineering team. To be a great engineer, you don't necessarily have to be a great communicator.
Right.
Um, but if you're working on the product side, or on the marketing side, or in sales, or in customer success, or you're helping tie our office together and kind of keep that ship afloat, you need to be able to communicate really well, both orally and in writing. And so my recommendation is, I don't feel like an old guy, but I guess in the grand scheme of things nowadays, I'm old school in that I like people that apply and write a little cover letter.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see that somebody is interested enough in what we do to kind of express their unique interest and what
Right.
is exciting them about it. I think that's almost a lost art to applying for jobs, where it's now just like I'm going to spray my resume out everywhere. But showing a little bit of personal attention, a little bit of personality, and like the ability to explain how you feel and what you're excited about goes a long way in my book. So
Huge.
yeah, those are two things. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
You'll
posted.
hear a lot of professionals say cover letters are overrated, don't write them. But like for me, I mean, if you don't send a cover letter, you're probably not going to get a job here.
It's so easy to apply these days. I mean, on Indeed, all you have to do is press submit, and then your resume
Yeah.
goes off to the hiring manager. And I remember putting up like 3 job descriptions for different roles with my company, and I got so many applicants. And for those that I was actually interested in, I would reach out, ask a question, maybe one very simple question. And all I'm looking for is engagement. Are they able to
Yeah.
read the email? And can they reply in a timely manner? That was my simple test. And I would say maybe 1 out of 10 actually passed that test.
Yeah.
Because they thought it was that easy. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And then, you know, on a position by position basis, you want to follow up and kind of drill into that those skills separately with different tests or different kind of instructions to follow. But yeah, just the basics. I mean, are people
Exactly.
excited about you? That's a huge thing. Like I want
Yeah.
people that are excited about what we're doing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a question from the audience. Chaim says, how many of the 2,000 to 3,000 beta users converted into paying customers?
It's a great question. We had, so not all 2,000 to 3,000 wait list signups actually became beta users. So we probably only had maybe 400 to 500 beta users. And I'm thinking back because now this was early 2014 when we were in beta. We were in beta for about 9 months. And when we launched, I would say about half of them converted. So we launched with about 200 paying customers.
Wow.
I think. Some of them. So
yeah.
it was good. I mean, the retention from beta to paid was very good. The conversion from wait list to beta was, you know, our wait list was up for like almost 2 years. So,
Damn.
or a year and a half at least. So like it was that was a long time to make people wait.
Right.
But it was good. I mean, you know, throughout that process, we were updating people. We were letting them know we were you know, where we were with the product, which features were coming available, getting feedback, trying to keep people engaged. You know, that was all we could do.
Did you use that group to conduct surveys or polls or focus group testing, anything like that? Oh no, you froze. It was just getting good. Ooh. Let's see if I can get Mike back on. So, give me a second. Mike just froze. Did you freeze? Let's see. It did freeze. Question was, did we use any, did he use his initial beta group list of emails to conduct focus group testing, stuff like that? And then he froze, so I couldn't get him to answer that question. So let's see if I can invite him to join again. And give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Well, if I were in his position, I'd probably do a little bit of focus group testing. I'd probably reach out, ask them some questions, understand their needs, and just get some general feedback. I know that it's really easy to kind of assume that when you have an email list that you can do all sorts of things with them, but you don't want to burn out your beta list users, and you want to make sure that you're still adding value to them over the long haul. Let's see. So I am going to try one more time to see if Mike is online. I think I lost you. Okay, so he is back. Give me 1 second to invite him. All right, Mike, I need you to look at the feed. Sorry, guys. Sent. Sorry, I have this little cough. Got back from Norway 3 weeks ago, and I think I picked up a little cough. All right, there he is. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Tell
so
me about it,
sorry.
William. No worries. I
Oh,
managed to keep talking. Um, yeah, so
classic,
I was like,
classic technology gaffe at an internet company. You know,
oh, it's no big deal.
yeah, it's unfortunately par for the course.
Yeah. So
Um,
I was just asking the question, did you use your beta group users for focus groups, things like that? Like, how did you engage with them?
it was a lot of just like creating surveys to try to
Okay.
capture feedback. You know, we didn't do, and it was a lot of just like we would have, you know, a really core group of customers that we would call and talk to thoroughly to get a sense for exactly what their workflows were, because there's only so much you can gather in aggregate from data.
Right.
Early on, you need that. But then as you grow your user base, like then you can do more interesting things with surveys. So yeah, I mean, it's an important step in making sure that what you're building actually does resonate, change
Right. That's so true.
the original product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. So there was another question. It says merchant would work with your platform and not eBay directly?
I cut out on the end there. Why would work with us and not what?
Not directly with eBay or Amazon?
Oh, sure. So our software really is for merchants that sell on multiple channels. We're a multi-channel listing solution and channel management tool. So you can sell directly on Amazon if you'd like, but if you're selling on Amazon and you're selling on eBay and you have your own website, there's a couple of big challenges that you're going to face. One, each one of those channels requires you to kind of manage it separately. And also each one of them requires you to tell the channel how many units you have in stock so that you can display that to a customer. The problem is that you're going to run into inventory issues where you oversell if you sell all of your items on Amazon and then somebody comes to your Shopify store and buys something. So what we
Okay.
do is we make sure that all of those channels stay in sync so that all of your orders come into one spot and we keep them accurately updated. The other issue is that each channel is very different in terms of how you get product data onto the channel. So creating your listings to the channel, the listings are kind of like your ads for each product, is a very different process for everyone. So what we've done is tried to really standardize that into one consistent flow for all of the channels so that it takes a lot of the
Right.
guesswork out of things and it makes it a much more comfortable and easy experience.
Right. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last of all the questions. I think you definitely answered everything that I had sent you in our initial email. The last remaining question, I know you have to hop off because you have an all hands on deck meeting, is what are the fun things that you're doing this weekend?
Oh, well, it's actually my wife's birthday weekend.
Oh,
So
yay.
we are going to tonight. She wanted to get some Korean barbecue, which is
Ooh.
always a favorite.
Do you have a
And
favorite
we're gonna,
place?
you know, I do. My place isn't one of kind of like the big traditionals. There's a place in Koreatown here called Magal that I really love.
Oh,
Um, and it's funny because all the much more experienced Korean barbecue eaters in my office are like, Magal, what is this place? But we get around, you know, one of the things that if you don't live in LA, you probably don't realize is there's this place in LA called Koreatown that is massive. I mean, it's a major neighborhood and there are thousands upon thousands of restaurants. And it's one of the culinary jewels of America, if not the world. So we make it a habit to try to go to Koreatown maybe once a week, although it's more like every 2 weeks, and explore a new place. So if you're an adventurous eater, you got to come out to LA and check out Koreatown. But yeah, we're not super partial. We get around. So we're doing that, and then for the last couple of days of the weekend, we're actually going to Las Vegas just to hang out.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you can
very
just go and
cool.
relax in Las Vegas, that's what we're going to try to do anyway.
Yeah, a friend of mine
Yeah.
had 2 free nights in Vegas and he was just giving them away and they could only be used this weekend and I considered it for a split second, but granted I just came back from Norway. I don't think I don't want to live out of my suitcase again for another
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah.
I saw
But
pictures of your trip though. It looked incredible.
oh, it was amazing. It was phenomenal. I was so lucky
Yeah.
that my boyfriend is Norwegian and, you know, they have family up north. So if you ever have a
That's awesome.
chance, I highly recommend it.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, you know, you answering all of my questions and sharing all this
yeah.
insightful, you know, worldly entrepreneurial advice to everybody who's, you know, kind of falling into this startup path. So thank you. I really
Thank you.
appreciate everything that you are doing and also say hello to Brian and Homan and everybody else on the team. So
I will
yeah,
do that. Thank you so much for having me on. I you know, can only speak to some of the experiences that I've had. One of the
right.
things that I forgot to mention that I would encourage anybody to do is when you're building your brand and thinking about your brand presence, you know, spend time thinking about what your logo, what you want it to represent, because that's kind of your first impression as a company. One of the things that I wanted to mention earlier, and I totally forgot, but that I think I'm most proud of about our company is our logo is a purple octopus,
I
which
love it.
is a little different. I mean, it's purple, first of all, and it's an octopus. And why I'm so proud of it is because I highly challenge anybody to try to draw an octopus that's not either clownish and cartoonish or absolutely terrifying. It's gonna invariably be one of those two things. So anyway, so that worked out well for us. But invest time in kind of that part of your brand because it's super important. You know, you want to represent your personality. But yeah, aside from that, if anybody has any other questions for me, you can find me here on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Sonia, for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye now.